Okay, right around 3:20 on this Tuesday, August the 15th. How's it going, everyone? William Cole here in the Storm Studio, and we do want to do a weather model discussion with you. It's been a while since we've done one of these. This is where we like to take you behind the scenes, show you kind of the raw data that we've been looking at as we've gone through the day here in the Storm Studio, of course, for North Texas. Through the summer months, there's typically not a lot going on, right? I mean, it's sunny, it's hot. We know this summer's been brutal. Highs basically 100 plus every day. So these have become a little pointless, right, as we went through the summer. But now as we begin to transition eventually in the fall, through winter, through spring, obviously, we'll be doing these more often. In fact, we'll try and do these every day, Monday through Friday. But let's go and get you caught up on what's going on, because we did have a summer cold front come through the area. And tell you what, temperatures, if you've been outdoors at all today, it feels much better than it has. This is a very dry air mass behind the front, and even though temperatures are jumping into the 90s, our feels like numbers, our heat index number, is actually in reverse. It actually feels less hot than the actual air temperature. Again, we'll talk about that as well coming up. But quickly, here's a look at our live cam at downtown Dallas. Again, bright sunshine out there. And again, it's one of those days, what you see is what you get. There's a look at temperatures. Basically 90s around the area, lower to mid 90s. And again, with the humidity values, the dew point number so low, the air mass so dry out there. Like I mentioned, your feels like number in most locations is below the air temperature. For example, at DFW, the air temperature is 92. It only feels like 89. So you don't see that very often, but again, when you have a very dry air mass coming in, the feels like number, the heat index is below a lot of times that actual air temperature. Typically, as we've gone through this summer, most days than not, obviously the heat index number has been well above your actual air temperature, right? Because of the humidity that we've been dealing with as we've gone through the season. Okay, let's go and jump into this just because we're pretty tight on time today. We want to jump over to the raw maps, right? This is what this segment, truly is all about. Of course, we don't put this on our channel. We just put this on our social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, any of those. If you see it on there, feel free to give it a like. And again, also feel free to leave a comment on there if you want as well. So here's what we have going on. We've got a big storm trough that's been off to our northeast for the last couple of days. That's what brought the summer cold front through the area. In fact, we have a cold front. It's from the eastern seaboard all the way into parts of Texas, right? It's a continental front. There's no real big temperature change with it, right? It is a different air mass because it is significantly drier. But along the eastern seaboard today, I'll go ahead and clear this out. There's been quite a bit of active weather ongoing along that front. And it's worth noting just quickly here, if you're wondering where the summer heat dome went, the summer heat dome is currently out on the west coast. You see the big ridge out there, the big bump in the flow, and they're sweltering out there. Oregon has temperatures today in the triple digits. California, especially the Central Valley, has temperatures in the triple digits. So they're sweltering out there, and there's some locations, especially along the Oregon coast, those folks don't even have air conditioner, right? So it's a big deal when they get up into the triple digits. So they're dealing with all of that. Now, beginning really late tomorrow, Wednesday, and into Thursday and Friday, maybe for the foreseeable future, the heat dome comes back and it sets up in the interior part of the country. And a good part of the nation is going to have a very significant heat wave. We're going to show you that coming up momentarily. But sometimes as you start to get into August, you think maybe we're about to kind of begin to wrap up summer, or kind of the peak of summer is over. And sometimes that's the case. If the data we're looking at today does truly pan out, we may have some of the hottest temperatures of the entire year, not just in North Texas, but across a good part of the country. This could be a pretty significant heat wave as we go through really the remainder of this work week and into the weekend as well. Again, what exactly that means, I'll show you coming up. But I do want to give you a quick peek here at the radar. Again, just speaking nationally, right? This is not obviously the normal radar that we use here on the channel. Again, we're just looking at kind of the behind the scenes graphics. And again, this is from NextLab. Again, you can pull this up on the computer as well. But again, you can see all the active weather along the eastern seaboard. And again, it all has to do with that boundary that again is attached to that big area of low pressure. In fact, if you look carefully, you can see spinning in a counterclockwise flow rather, up across parts of the Great Lakes into the Midwest. That's where that parent low is. See that where I kind of put that little comma there? You can see the counterclockwise spin, and again, the frontal boundary coming off of that. So along that frontal boundary today, that's where the opportunity of severe weather is. We just didn't have the dynamics here in North Texas to really get any rain or thunderstorm activity to go. If you're down in our southern counties yesterday, you did get, again, a few widely scattered showers and thunderstorms. In fact, we did have one severe thunderstorm warning yesterday as well down in our southern counties. But again, by and large, in North Texas, specifically here in the Metroplex, it was a dry frontal passage, right? No real concern with that. Again, here's a look from the SPC, the active weather today. And again, you can see exactly where it is, right? Where that frontal boundary is. And again, everything is basically confined over here to the eastern seaboard. A little bit of monsoonal moisture possible out in the desert southwest. The folks out in the desert southwest, they've basically missed their monsoon season. There's one analog, there's one at least time in modern history where they had a very late start to the monsoon season and it ended up turning out for them. And it was basically today that it started. I mean, today's date, right? August the 15th that it started. And it worked out for them. We'll see if it happens. I mean, it's been pretty hit and miss. There's no real indication it's really going to kick in. But for the folks out there to miss their monsoon season, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, they've almost missed out on maybe even all the rain they get all year. Typically through the winter months, especially December and January, they are, suspect to some, wintry type storms that come through that can give them some precipitation. But by and large, they've missed out, right? Now, it's not everybody out there because you go a little bit further to the west into California, and well, you already know, right? I mean, they're just, too much water, too much melted snow. Parts of Yosemite, they were still melting. This was like 2 weeks ago. They were still melting out snow out there. It was still melting. I mean, that's just how much snow they've had. It's just unbelievable. I saw that on Instagram. I still follow Yosemite. When I was in the Navy for a little while, I lived in Fresno, and in Fresno, that's just south of Yosemite, and of course, being active duty at the time, we got in free, so we went to Yosemite all the time when I was there. Okay, so we know about what's going on there today. Let's just look at the convective outlook here for tomorrow. And again, basically off to the north, right? Most of the country, quiet, not much going on. Day 3 outlook, Great Lakes region, same little trough, right? That's coming out of the upper Midwest, moving through the Great Lakes. Nothing really going on, right? So really across the nation, things are getting quieter over the next couple of days, okay? Which is good, right? I mean, as far as the severe weather aspect goes, that's always a good thing. Quickly, let's take a quick peek at the tropics. We like to look at that as well, especially this time of the year. Tropics have remained dead. I mean, there's been nothing that's going on. There are 2 areas of interest right now from the National Hurricane Center. None of the data is really developing these. The one that's just now coming off the coast of Africa, there's some indication maybe it becomes a depression, maybe it becomes a storm, but the track is going to be well off to the north. Quickly into the mid to upper latitudes, and the waters up there become cooler quickly, and it's just not going to be favorable for enhanced development, right? This little wave is going to move off to the west. I'll show you the data on this momentarily, but it just doesn't really do anything. And, NOAA, which is kind of the parent organization of the National Weather Service, they continually update their hurricane outlook for the season, for the year. And even though there's been essentially no hurricane season so far, they've actually upped their outlook. They still think, the end of August, heading into September, parts of October, things may really energize and just go crazy, right? But right now, there's no real indication of that happening. So in other words, they're not backing it down. They're not saying, nothing's really happened. Maybe let's scratch a little bit of this off. There could still be a season, but maybe it's just really not going to play out that well. They're saying, no, you know what? We're going to do this in about a 6-week time frame. So we'll see how that happens. There's some folks that say, 75%. If you average it out over the last 30 years, 75% of the hurricane season has basically been in September, right? That's basically the peak of hurricane season. So we'll see. We'll see how it works out. But right now, not a lot going on. I'll show you the data on that. Let's come over to the model. And in fact, speaking of that, we'll peek this here first. And then we'll get into our local forecast. And this is just looking out into the Atlantic Basin. Hopefully you can see that okay. But here's where we're watching, right? We're watching over here coming off the coast of Africa, this wave, and then we're also going to be watching this wave here. And then, of course, anything else that could pop up over the next 10 days. This is based off the Euro model, typically the best performing data, rather, for tropical activity, especially in the Atlantic at least. So there we go. Again, this is about 7 days out at this point. And again, you can see that wave that came off the coast of Africa. There it is. Not very well pronounced, not really doing a whole lot. We'll take you out through the full 10 days. Just kind of keep your eye on that. The track is a little bit further to the northwest now as opposed to due westerly. And then there's one more little wave. Watch this one here. There's one more little wave. This is just on the latest run. Watch this wave here. Let me go and roll this back into motion. And you can see that moves out into the open basin right about there and is maybe a little more favorable, right? So that could be something there. We're waiting on an Emily, but that's still 7 to 10 days on down the road. So in the near term, nothing really showing up, but out of everything, that wave coming off the continent of Africa could be interesting, okay? So we'll watch that carefully, obviously, as we go forward in time. We're also watching, I want to bring this back home here, and again, this is just the 500 millibar look, kind of what we looked at earlier, kind of the upper air pattern, and similar story. This is where we kind of put together the meat and potatoes of the forecast. I just really got to watch the time today because we're really running pretty tight here. So two things I want you to notice. Number one, we are going to talk about a little wave, a little tropical wave. I don't think it's going to be a depression, storm, anything named. However, every time we say that and there's something in the Gulf, a lot of times it does energize, but we're going to keep our eye on it. We're going to talk about that next. But what I really want to talk about first is the summer heat dome, right? So right now we know the summer heat dome, it's backed up well to the west, right, out across parts of California. As I roll this into motion, though, watch what happens over the next 5 to 7 days. This is it here. And look at it recentering across the interior part of the country. I mean, that's a good part of the nation under a very significant heat dome. And as I roll this out even further, let me go and clear this off. Look what happens. I mean, this is out over the next 7 to 10 days. It's still there. And it's over most of the country. That's a significant heat wave. That would be a very significant heat wave, and the fact it's covering so much of the nation, that would be a big story, right? So we'll see exactly how that plays out. The other thing I want you to watch just quickly, there's two little waves here. Number one, let me go and back this up, and then we'll take a quick peek at our local forecast. I want you to watch this here. I'm going to try and speed this up just a little bit. It's this little wave right here. Just keep your eye on this. Watch this as it moves off to the west. This could be a rain chance for us, but I don't think it's going to be. The data here doesn't really energize it, doesn't do much with it. Again, this time of the year, especially the end of August and September, I mean, there's 80% of the time when the data isn't necessarily doing anything with this stuff, but it's moving through the Gulf, it still energizes. The only caveat to that is this is an El Nino year, and in El Nino years, typically the Gulf, the air is very turbulent, right? There's a lot of environmental conditions that are not favorable for development, okay? So fingers crossed that's the case, right? Because the motion is going to be towards the Texas coast. Now here's the deal. As it moves towards the Texas coast, the last couple of days, it looked like maybe some of that moisture could get far enough to the north here into North Texas that we would get some rain. But look what's happening here, right? Twofold here. The summer heat dome right up in here is going to block this wave, and it's going to send it due westerly, right? It can't get any further to the north. The summer heat domes is just going to eject it off to the west. So the deep south of Texas, maybe down around the Rio Grande, they may get some rain here in about 7 days, maybe even a pretty decent little tropical rain coming in. But it's going to be a swing and the way it looks right now, it's going to be a swing and a miss for us. And we're going to be baking, absolutely baking during that point in time. Okay, now here's the other wave we also have to watch. The very end of this, right over the tip of Florida, right over the Florida Peninsula. Keep your eye on this here as well. Keep your eye on this little wave here as well. It's going to be a similar story because the summer heat dome is just to the north, but there might be something that tries to spin up around the Florida Peninsula. But again, the dome, right, the summer heat dome, comes right about here. So it's going to block, if this spins up, and again, doesn't necessarily even mean it's going to be a depression, a storm, or a hurricane, but there's a pretty decent signal, again, at least through the extended, that there's going to be some kind of a tropical wave, something. You see it right there. But again, with the dome there, what's going to happen? It's going to be ejected off. Here's the jet stream flow up in here, so it's going to be ejected off and probably just move off that direction. So as far as any rain coming for Texas or our neck of the woods, kind of even in our region, it looks like even if something were to spin up there, again, it would be ejected, deflected, if you will, off to the north, okay? So, I mean, there's not a lot going on with our pattern. I mean, you know, that can change. I mean, all that's looking out into the extended, and we all understand that. 7-10 days on down the road, you know, it's sketchy, right? It's sketchy. Now here is the caveat to our forecast, because we've had a great afternoon out there today. Temperatures, I mean, struggling to even make the 95 that I'm forecasting. 97 for tomorrow, Wednesday. But as that summer heat dome comes back, and again, keep in mind with all the dry vegetation, again, the moisture, even the humidity over the next couple days is going to be lower. It's going to set the stage for some very hot temperatures. So we're going to go from 97 tomorrow. This is not a misprint. 109. I'm only forecasting 107. I don't want to get too crazy, but this is the blend of models, and this is pretty accurate. That's pretty accurate stuff. So to 109, 107, 109 Thursday. By Friday, 110. By the weekend, 107 to 108. And then we basically level right off around 105 into the foreseeable future. Okay, and again, you saw the dome. I mean, it's built in there through at least day 10. And even as we go out further, I mean, if you want to look at the American model, it doesn't appear as though there's much in the way of change with that. Okay, so it looks like, even though we got a little break from the heat today, tomorrow, it could be a very hot close to August. And again, with no rain showing up whatsoever. So that would be pretty tough, right? Keep in mind, I mean, an average high this time of year for North Texas is 97. Right? You take the last 30 years, you average it out, it's only 97. There's some years, obviously, like last year and like this year, that are much hotter. Okay, that factors into the average. There's other years, like 2 years ago, when we were, I mean, struggling to hit the triple digits, and that's kind of on the lower end, right? So, you know, an average is an average, and we all understand that. But I mean, this is going to be what appears to be a pretty brutal, pretty tough end to August. We're in El Nino, right? It could even be now becoming a super El Nino, and a lot of times that will make for more of an active fall pattern in North Texas. Even the opportunity of severe weather, we don't want severe weather, but if that equals some rain coming in, that would be good, because we're now running about an 8-inch rainfall deficit, okay? So let me just go and take one more little peek here at we'll take a look at precip over the next 10 days, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. And I know this is a little abbreviated from some of the other maps when we do these in the past. The only reason why, I mean, there's nothing else to show you. There's nothing else going on. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. But what I want to do, I just want to look at the euro, and this will be the 10-day total precip for us here locally. And this will just walk you out over the next 10 days. And you can see there's that tropical rain. Look at that good tropical rain down there around the Rio Grande. See that? See how that fills in? I mean, we're talking about, there's some locations down there 4, 5, 6 inches. But again, with us under the dome, there it is. You see, I mean, basically through 10 days, the Euro's saying we're dry. Nothing showing up again for us, even up in the parts of Oklahoma, even over in the parts of Arkansas. Not a lot going on. So that's where we are. I mean, that's basically your forecast in a nutshell. We're tracking all of this carefully. Of course, we'll have your evening forecast coming up on Weather Tracker TV, again, starting at 5 p.m., obviously, through the evening. We'll talk about this, probably not quite as detailed. That's why we do these, but we'll have a completely updated look at your forecast, the 12-day, all that kind of fun stuff. Also, remember, again, if you have not downloaded our free mobile app, be sure to do that today. Again, you can go to your app store, again, the iTunes store, Google Play, whatever it is you have. And again, just type in Weather Tracker TV DFW. It is a completely free download. And again, if you're seeing this on one of our social media platforms, feel free to give it a like. And otherwise, like I said, we'll try and do another one of these tomorrow. These are, again, they're going to be just a little more intermittent until we get more in the way of active weather going, but we'll try and get a little more consistent doing these even before we truly get into fall. So, okay. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of these less hot temperatures today and have a great rest of your Tuesday afternoon.